The kind of clients that we would work with would be either housing providers or fund managers or investment managers who want to acquire and upgrade and hold homes.
So talk to me about Green Resi. What do you do? What does it do? What purpose does it serve?
Ultimately, the purpose has become helping upgrade homes, but in order to do that, they need to be owned by the right people. So it's a first stage is about getting the right money into housing to upgrade them. So I guess making that sort of a little simpler, the landlords that we talked about earlier, a lot of the time, a lot of landlords are selling at the moment because they don't want the hassle of being landlords. And a lot of housing providers, so social housing providers like housing associations, are also having trouble with upgrading the homes that they own because standards and regulations have improved and it costs a lot of money to upgrade properties to modern standards. So there's a load of properties that are owned by people who don't have the money to upgrade them, or they don't have the skills, or they don't have the capability. And then there's a load of investors who are obsessed with residential in the UK because they're like, listen, it's stable, it gives a good income, and it's growing over the long term because ultimately there's more demand than there is supply. And supply is really slow to respond. We can talk about that in a minute too. So there's a really good investment case for why new capital is coming in, but there's a mismatch basically between those two. So we sort of set up to bridge the gap for those kind of institutional investors to be able to scale down to the size of the average opportunity, which is basically the average house price, whether that's in a group of properties owned by a housing association or just one owned by a single investor. Their average property is like 280 grand, 285 grand. That is way too small for a big pension fund to get out of bed for. It costs them so much to do their due diligence that they wouldn't bother getting out of bed for less than 50 million. So how do you bridge the gap between, okay, I only want to allocate 50 million at a time and 285 grand? Well, you need technology to do that. So that's what we built.
So how do you bring those two parties together then? And I guess this is coming back to you making the point of properties being owned by the right people.
People who are selling and people who are buying, that's it. It's the transactions that bring the two together. So our tool is built for institutions to make efficient decisions about what to buy and at what price.
I'm wondering here, just picking up on the point that you made about making sure the properties are owned by the right people. And I guess what's in my mind is like, who is the right people? Who are the right people?
The right people have the money to upgrade the properties and then rent them out. The problem that we have in the market at the moment is we have a load of empty and underused homes. And I mean, I don't know, this was definitely going to come up at some point in the conversation, but I'll bring it up now. Labour have this promise of 1.5 million new homes, but there's like 1.5 over the next 5 years. That's 300,000 a year.
Yeah.
There's
new build.
New builds, but there's about 1.5 million empty and underused homes just not being used. They already exist, but they're not at modern standards or they're owned by the wrong people. So what we're doing is helping recapitalise that sector, which is critical if you want to solve the housing crisis or help to do that, and if you want to do so without the carbon cost of new build.
Why do you think then that governments will focus on new build?
It's easier.
So much so that they'll go in and say, right, we're going to change planning laws, we're going to go into greenfield, as opposed to them saying, we know what the stock is for those properties that are maybe dilapidated and so on, and we're going to shift that.
It's not really a headline winner to upgrade existing homes.
But why not though? Why do you think it's not? And who even decides that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know, but I know that housing is a political football, and I used to get very exercised by this. But I spoke to some civil servants who said to me, you're deluded if you think this is going to change. It's never going to change. Housing will always be a political football. Remember, politicians are incentivized to win votes. They are not incentivized to give the best policy. So talking about building new homes and having a common enemy, which is the planning system, is brilliant for vote winning. It's not going to solve the problem, but it's great for vote winning. The other thing that's good about having a big target like that is that theoretically it should unlock the next level of capability. My mentor once told me, Anna, the things that you need to do in order to double your productivity. There's a very long list of incremental changes that you can make. So it's like, working an extra hour in the office so that you can clear your inbox, or I don't know, adding a new Pomodoro technique to your tool set or something like this. Lots and lots of little changes, and you could just about double your productivity. Or if you want to 10x your productivity, there's a very short list of things, and they all catapult your performance. And I think that is what Labour are trying to do. They're trying to say, okay, this is an audacious goal. We need to really we need to unlock the next level here. And what they believe, or at least say what they believe the solution is improving the planning system. I would query that, and I would say a lot of people in the industry would query whether that would be enough, because there's also a big commercial issue with, okay, is it worth building right now?
So just going back to the point that you made before with reference to politicians and about how they are just chasing votes. And there was a civil servant that had mentioned that to you and said, look, Anna, you're never going to change because it's not a vote winner.
No.
I think that's one of the difficulties that we have, not just in the plight to try and get the properties more sustainable, but also just from a social perspective as well.
Big time.
Because lots of things that we struggle with as a people are fixed over generations as opposed to within a 5-year window.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. The time frame for big infrastructure decisions should be longer than for a voting cycle. And arguably housing should be treated as infrastructure, but it's not. It's treated as we talked about earlier, it's treated as a political football, something that you can use to win votes with, when actually we need longer term decision making in order to have longer term better outcomes.
I think that there's more that we can do if, when we view properties, we view them with people in mind instead of just
costs.
Let's just look at money.
Well, exactly. And I think it comes, okay, so a popular topic is potholes, right? Where do they come from? Because we don't have them in other countries, in a lot of other countries. Like, I travel a lot. I've been to 25 cities this year.
Don't go to Jamaica.
No, okay, yeah. Yeah, okay, so there are climatic things. There are climatic, contributing factors to this. But ultimately, if you invest in the right way in the infrastructure, then it's not going to be a problem. It is a problem here. It is a big problem in London and in the UK. And and it's because of, it's not just a lack of investment, it's the lack of the right investment, right? Because you've got too many decision makers. And this, again, it comes down to the very same thing as housing. It's like you've got too many heads making decisions, and no one's making the right decisions.
Thanks for watching to the end. I think that you'll like this, but before you do that, just make sure that you've commented and liked below, and also that you subscribed.